Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take the world's most complex, detailed stories and filter them down so you are instantly the best informed person in the room.
Today, we're looking at one of the most, well, structurally complex situations we've ever analyzed. You, our listener, sent us sources covering two completely different high-stakes crises that were somehow unfolding at the exact same time.
And the contrast is just incredible. On one hand, you have this massive, icy industrial confrontation up in the Russian Arctic. We're talking organized crime, big money, a major kidnapping.
And then, on the other hand, literally miles below the Earth's surface, there's this incredibly sophisticated coup attempt going on in a subterranean city.
A city populated by, technologically advanced ferries.
Exactly. So the big question is, how are these two things connected? You've got this young human millionaire, a notorious Russian mafia miniature, these high-tech ferries, and then organized goblin gangs. How do they all link up? That's really the core of what we're trying to figure out here.
Right. Our sources are detailing the immediate fallout from a huge surface disaster, the sinking of a ship called the Fowl Star, and at the same time, this coordinated escalation of hostilities in the ferry world. So we're going to dive deep into both of these stories as they run in parallel.
And our goal is to identify the masterminds, look at the really exotic technology they were using, and maybe most importantly, trace how this completely unlikely alliance formed.
An alliance between, what, global law enforcement and a known criminal genius.
Yeah.
All to stop a civil war and prevent, well, total exposure.
I mean, you can't get much more high stakes than this. This isn't just about a simple rescue operation. It's about unmasking this massive internal betrayal within the lower elements police.
The LEP.
Right, the LEP. And it's about stopping the entire ferry society from collapsing, all while trying to dismantle a lethal Russian crime syndicate on the surface. We really need to look at the moments these two worlds, the human and the magical, just violently smashed into each other on the Kola Peninsula.
Okay, so let's start on the surface. The trigger event. We had to go back 2 years to this chaotic, freezing scene in Murmansk, northern Russia.
And the sources are very clear. This place is so cold, the climate itself is like an enforcer. The target is the Bay of Kola, and the mission is the sinking of the Fowl Star.
This was a deliberate act of sabotage.
Oh, absolutely. Orchestrated by the mafia. The men on the ground were two enforcers, Michael Vasikin and Kamar, and they were acting on direct orders from their boss, Brinkva. The instruction was simple: sink the Fowl Star. But this is where things immediately start to go wrong.
The Vasikin, he's the one who messes up.
He does. He's supposed to be this competent ex-KGB guy, but he botches the critical hit. He was aiming for the cargo bay, the weakest structural point on the vessel.
But he misses.
He misses, only hits the stern. And that small difference, maybe 10, 15 feet, means everything. The ship doesn't just, break apart and sink instantly. It goes down slowly.
Which gives people time.
Precious time. It means there are survivors. And 8 hours later, in these just brutal sub-zero conditions, Vasikin and Kamar find one, a man, severely injured 3 kilometers from the harbor.
And his condition is bad.
Terrible. Extreme frostbite, burns from the explosion, and one leg is described as hanging, strangely limp below the knee.
But they don't know who he is at first.
Not at all. He's clearly a Westerner. He's wearing expensive clothes, so they know he's rich, but there's no ID. Vasikin, though, he finds 2 things during his search: a custom leather wallet and a solid gold Cartier chronograph.
Studded with diamonds.
Right. And the sources point out that watch alone was worth about 5 years of an average Russian salary, so they knew they'd hit something big.
But the wallet is what confirms it.
The platinum Visa card inside the wallet, it tells them they've hit the absolute jackpot, the name on the card: Artemis Fowl 1.
And Kamar, he's the smarter of the two, right?
He is. He's more level-headed. And he instantly recognizes that name and what it represents. He says this is their ticket to the big time. He doesn't even hesitate. He calls Brinkva, the manager, right away.
Which is a huge risk, because Brinkva is known for not taking bad news well.
Exactly. He's known for shooting subordinates who fail. The fact that Kamar calls him immediately shows you the scale of this. This isn't just some rich tourist. This is Fowl. They knew keeping him alive was the most important thing, so they wrap him in blankets, do just enough to keep him from dying of pneumonia. The mission had officially changed from sabotage to a strategic ransom.
So the sources then jump forward 2 years. The focus is now on the son, Artemis Fowl, through it. He gets this message that interrupts a very out-of-character counseling session.
The first communication from the kidnappers, it's an email, and inside is an MPEG video of his father looking terrible, holding a sign with the simple Russian phrase on it:
Strasvice, Sin, hello, son.
And this is where the two worlds collide. Artemis, completely desperate, has to leverage that uneasy alliance he has with the lower elements police. Specifically with their technical genius, the centaur, Foley.
Because the email is untraceable by human standards?
Right, it's highly spiked. A digital dead end. It's designed by the mafia to be a ghost signal.
But Foley isn't worried about ghosts.
Not at all. He has that classic, arrogant line, spiked. Don't make me laugh. If it's been sent, I can trace it. And this is where the tech gets really, really interesting. Foley isn't just following the digital breadcrumbs.
No, he's doing something much deeper.
He's performing a forensic analysis of the physical infrastructure that carried the signal.
So not the ones and zeros, but the actual wires and switches.
Exactly. It's the first time we see this theme. The advanced high-tech system being vulnerable because of a crude, older system. Foley explains that every piece of electronic communication, no matter how fancy the computer is that sends it, it leaves these tiny microscopic traces of the materials it passed through.
Like a geological footprint.
A perfect analogy. He runs the MPEG through these incredibly specialized filters, and he finds two almost impossible clues. The first is uranium residue.
Which is not something you normally find on the internet.
No, that immediately points him to northern Russia, specifically the Severomorsk area. That whole region is a nuclear hotspot from decades of military and industrial activity, so he's got a 50-mile radius.
But it's the second clue that really nails it down.
This is the genius part. He detects microtraces from early 20th century copper wiring.
Old wiring.
Ancient high-sulfur copper wiring that just isn't used in modern cities anymore. So you cross-reference the uranium hot zone with the map of old, unupgraded infrastructure, and you land directly on one place. Murmansk. The very criminals who thought they were safe using sophisticated digital spikes were betrayed by the decaying, forgotten infrastructure of the city they were in. Foley basically weaponized their industrial neglect.
He calls it joining the dots.
Yeah, but those dots were separated by 100 years of technology. It's just brilliant.
So now they have the where, but they need the who, the threat profile.
Right. So Foley dives into his own personal archives, the ones he uses to spy on, as he calls them, mud people, so-called intelligence agencies. And the profile he pulls up is chilling.
This is where we meet the key players.
The face of the operation is Michael Vasikin, ex-KGB, now just an enforcer, a Kuligany. He works for Britva, the manager, the absolute kingpin of Murmansk, and their specialty is very clear.
Kidnapping European businessmen.
And they are brutally effective. In the 5 years before this, they'd taken 6 Germans and a Swede, and the number that Artemis has to wrap his head around is the survival rate.
For the hostages or the negotiators?
Zero.
100%
fatal. Not a single person recovered alive. In 2 of those cases, the negotiators themselves just vanished, along with $8 million in ransom money. This group wasn't playing games. Their method was to leverage fear, get some money, and then eliminate everyone involved.
So for Artemis and Butler, it's a trap. A straightforward exchange is just suicide.
It's not a negotiation. It's a battlefield where the other side has already decided to kill you. That terrifying fact shapes everything Artemis does from this point on. So while all this tension is building in the Arctic, we have to shift our focus. We go 60 miles below the Earth's surface to Haven City and LEP operations.
And we find Captain Holly Short. She's on this incredibly boring surveillance duty.
The worst. She's at the dormant E-37 parachute terminal. It's a punishment detail, really.
Because of the first Artemis Fowl incident, she's on probation.
Exactly. So she's expecting to see nothing, just rock and deep cave ice. But then her shift is shattered. 2 moving thermal signatures appear on her screen.
And they're the wrong color.
They're gray, which shouldn't be possible. On a thermal scan, gray means cold, inactive, dead. A moving object should be red or orange or yellow.
So something is moving, but it's invisible to their primary sensor system.
It forces Foley to confront a huge technological blind spot. Someone has engineered a way to beat his system.
So let's unpack that. How did they do it?
The moving gray shapes are goblins from the Bulwakel triad, and they are wearing custom-made reflective foil suits.
Like aluminum foil.
Essentially. It reflects their own body heat back at them, so from the outside, they have the same thermal signature as the surrounding rock. Holly notes immediately that this is very clever. It's a level of sophistication that is way, way beyond the Bulwakel.
Whose brains are compared to rats, I think.
That's the quote. This is the second big clue, that same theme again. Advanced intelligence is guiding crude foot soldiers. Holly engages, fires her neutrino 2000.
And it works, but not in the usual way.
Right, the electrical charge spreads through the foil suit and incapacitates one of the goblins. And what she finds on him changes the entire investigation.
The weapon.
An outlawed soft-nosed laser rifle. These things are nasty. They were originally designed for deep mining, but they were so powerful, so destructive, they were banned decades ago. They don't stun, they kill.
But the gun itself isn't the real shock here. It's the power source.
That is the real betrayal. A soft nose is supposed to run on a specialized fairy solar cell. Very rare, very hard to get your hands on. This one, though, it had been crudely but brilliantly modified.
To run on a human battery.
A human AAA alkaline battery.
Wow, the irony.
It's incredible. The source calls the AAA crude, inefficient, and an environmental disaster. But it has one huge advantage. It's everywhere on the surface. You can buy them by the thousand. It completely bypasses the entire fairy supply chain.
And this wasn't just a one-off.
No, Holly finds 12 crates of these pencil batteries. This isn't some small-time black market deal. This is someone arming the Bois-Quel for an all-out war. Foley himself looks at the modification and says it was very clever, again confirming this is beyond the goblins.
So this evidence immediately points the investigation away from the goblins themselves.
And onto the real masterminds. Lieutenant Briar Cudgeon and the genius pixie CEO, Opal Cowboy.
Opal Cowboy. Let's talk about her for a second. Her motivation is almost petty.
It's spectacularly petty. It all comes down to academic rivalry. She's a true prodigy. Took over her father's business, built Cowboy Laboratories into the biggest defense contractor in the lower elements. She holds more patents than any other fairy.
Except one.
Except Foley, her great rival. It all goes back to university when she lost the science medal to him. A single medal years ago, and it fueled this ambition to tear down their entire civilization. She doesn't just want to be rich. She wants absolute power.
And Cudgeon is her perfect partner in this.
The perfect broken tool. He was physically disfigured, his forehead is described as melted tar, his eye is droopy, and he was completely humiliated after the first Artemis Fowl affair.
A bad reaction to some banned substances.
Right, so he was demoted, stripped of his rank, and all he wants is revenge. Revenge on Commander Root, who demoted him, and on Foley, who he blames for everything.
So you have this perfect storm. Cowboy provides the money and the tech. Cudgeon provides the insider knowledge of LEP weaknesses.
And their plot is... it's simple, but brilliant. Cowboy funds the Bois-Quel as a distraction. She even stages attacks on her own labs to throw off suspicion and get more LEP defense contracts. They're just arming the goblins for a civil war.
But the real treachery is in those defense contracts.
That's the deepest cut. Cowboy Laboratories had just finished upgrading the entire LEP system. Weapons, vehicles, everything. And while they were doing it, they planted tiny, undetectable mole cameras all through Police Plaza.
So they could watch their enemies in real time.
And worse. Much worse. They hid a deadly surprise in every single LEP neutrino weapon. A microscopic dot of solder that was actually a detonatable mercury and glycerin solution.
Meaning they could shut down the entire police force with one signal.
One remote broadcast signal from Cowboy's main communications dish. Cudgeon's plan was to let the chaos unfold, have the council panic, and reinstate him as commander.
At which point he'd miraculously fix the weapons.
And emerge as the hero. The savior of Haven, and the true power behind the throne, with everyone thinking Opal Cowboy was just another victim. It's a classic playbook for a coup. Controlled chaos leading to a dictatorship.
So these two crises, the Arctic and the underground coup, they finally crash into each other when Artemis Fowl was brought into Haven City for interrogation.
Right. Holly's initial suspicion is that he's the human supplying the Bois-Quel. The batteries, the foil suits... it fits his profile.
But this is where Foley deploys one of his most brilliant inventions, the retimiger.
It's an incredible piece of technology. It's an optical scanner that can analyze retinal etchings. Basically, it can see the images that have recently been imprinted on your eye.
Like pulling up a visual history from someone's brain.
Exactly. So they scan Fowl's retinas and cross-reference them with images of goblins, of soft-nosed lasers, and the number of matching points is incredibly low. The retimiger proves it.
He's innocent.
Completely. He's never supplied the goblins. In fact, he's never even seen one before.
Which clears the way for this ultimate pragmatic bargain.
Artemis, ever the opportunist, he sees his moment. He forces cooperation. He offers his mind, his intelligence, and Butler's unmatched surface expertise in exchange for the full power of the LEP to help rescue his father.
And Commander Root, he has to agree.
He has no choice. The alternative is a long, drawn-out investigation while Haven burns. So, grimly, he agrees. The unlikely alliance is formed.
So their first move is to find the actual human link. Butler and Holly are sent on a rapid mission to Paris to track down a middleman named Luc Carrere.
And they don't use human interrogation methods. They use the ultimate LEP tool, mesmerism.
But remotely.
Remotely. Holly uses a comm screen that's hooked up to one of Foley's new prototypes, the safety net. She mesmerizes this French PI, Luc Carrere, who turns out to be, well, a bit of a mess.
He's been mesmerized so many times by Cudgeon, his mind is basically a blank slate.
Blanker than a wiped disc is the quote. He's just a puppet following orders. Which is actually perfect for Artemis, because under the mesmer, Carrere truthfully confesses he never dealt with goblins. He just got orders paid in shoddy counterfeit euros from an old cowboy printer to buy batteries and fire suits.
But the mission in Paris takes a very dangerous turn.
It does. Carrere, acting on his programming, suddenly pulls a weapon and fires a bouncer at Butler.
And a bouncer is not a small weapon.
It's a serious piece of hardware. A wide-bore, low-frequency blaster designed for tunnel fighting. It's devastatingly powerful. But Butler, showing incredible reflexes, uses this exact moment to test the safety net prototype he's carrying.
The shield.
He hurls the device into the path of the blast, and it instantly generates this 2-meter sphere of tri-phased light. The shield contains the entire laser burst. It's described as a fireworks display in a bubble.
It saves both their lives.
It does, and it proves two critical things to Commander Root. First, just how dangerous these black market weapons are, and second, the absolute genius of Foley's defensive tech. Even a prototype works perfectly.
So, with Cudgeon's betrayal now confirmed, the rescue team heads for the Arctic. Root, Holly, Artemis, and Butler. Their target is the abandoned chute terminal E93 near Murmansk.
One of the most hostile places on the planet's surface, the Kola Peninsula. The sources call it a massive nuclear disaster.
It was closed decades ago because of high radiation.
Right, and this is uniquely deadly for fairies. They have zero tolerance for radiation. This means their magic, their shielding, it's useless there. It would fail instantly.
So they have to pretend to be human.
They have to rely on cumbersome human technology, rad suits, thick, stinking rad gel for camouflage. The powerful magical beings are reduced to wearing bulky suits just to survive.
Even Butler has to use the gel because they don't have a suit big enough for him.
He does. They are all completely stripped of their natural defenses, totally vulnerable.
And because Cudgeon is watching everything through those mole cameras, they're walking right into a trap.
The mission is compromised before it even begins. A block-hill hit squad, flying cowboy double-deck wings, ambushes them. Commander Root, the old soldier, he sees it immediately. The attack is too precise. He just says, "We have a leak."
Artemis agrees, still suspecting it might be Foley. But the goblins have a plan.
It's not a firefight. They detonate charges planted under an ice overhang. They trigger a massive, targeted avalanche of rock and snow.
And it traps the team.
Buries them in a small, freezing hollow. They're trapped, exposed to radiation, and running out of time.
It's only Butler's raw strength that saves them from being crushed.
An incredible feat. He just shoves Artemis and Holly forward, shielding them with his own body. They're alive, but they're trapped, freezing, and completely desperate.
Until their only hope for escape appears. A train.
A mechanical monster. The Mayak chemical train, Artemis knows it, calls it the Green Machine. It's transporting spent uranium and plutonium. It's described as being hotter than a nuclear submarine.
But it's their only way out of the radiation zone.
It is. Holly, showing incredible focus, pulls out a tool fairy acid. She uses it to melt the lock on one of the carriages, creating just enough space for them to climb aboard a moving, highly radioactive train. They are literally trading one disaster for another, a slightly less immediate one.
Okay, so they escape onto the Mayak train, but it comes at a huge personal cost, specifically for Holly.
A catastrophic cost. As she's climbing aboard, the heavy carriage door slides shut and it severs her index finger.
Her trigger finger.
Her trigger finger. It's a devastating moment. And she's already exhausted her magic healing Butler and Artemis earlier. She has to use the absolute last dregs of her power just to stop the bleeding, which leaves her completely drained.
And Root is furious.
He is furious. He points out that she just lost a career-ending finger trying to save the father of the very criminal who got her into this mess in the first place.
The irony is brutal. And Artemis, he realizes she's near death.
He does. He understands the urgency. He remembers hearing about the power restoring ceremony, the ritual. He finds Holly's illegal plexiglass sphere, the little globe with earth and an acorn she wears.
And the ritual is the only way to fix this. It's this primal, earth-based ceremony.
A huge contrast to their high-tech world, and you see the whole team come together. Butler, the human weapons expert, has to use his gun to blast a hole in the frozen ground to get to the soil. Root, the military commander, has to crudely tape her severed finger back onto her hand.
And Artemis, the pragmatist, puts her fingers around the acorn. The healing process that follows is intense, blue sparks everywhere.
The last time it was performed, it apparently nearly destroyed an entire shuttle port, and after 4 minutes, it works. Holly is revived.
And the first thing she does.
The very first thing she does is open her eyes, look at Artemis, and punch him square in the face, sending him flying into a snowdrift. She just says, "Now we're even." It's this perfect visceral moment that somehow solidifies their strange alliance.
Meanwhile, back in Haven City, the crisis is exploding.
Right. Foley, still trapped in his blast-proof Opsis, finally gets the proof he needs. He confirms that Lieutenant Briar Cudgeon is the mole. The evidence is just overwhelming.
Cudgeon was the only one with the right clearance and access to the parts used for the Black Hills attack craft.
Exactly. So Cudgeon, now reinstated as commander by a Canict Council, launches his attack. The Backhel goblins storm downtown Haven, hitting civilian targets like Spud's Spud Emporium.
And the LEP officers, people like Captain Troublekelp, they're helpless.
Completely helpless. This is the moment Cowboy's betrayal clicks into place. The officers raise their neutrino weapons and nothing happens. The mercury glycerin solution detonated, rendering them useless. They're stuck with tasers and buzz batons against an army. The entire LEP is neutralized.
Root gets the news and realizes they have to regain control of the weapons, which means they have to get inside Cowboy Labs.
The most secure facility on the planet, carved 3 miles into bedrock, protected by DNA-coated stun cannons, supposedly impenetrable.
But Root has an idea. He remembers the one criminal who ever beat its security.
The one and only Mulch Diggums, the dwarf.
Who everyone thought was dead.
Right, he'd faked his death. The sources show he's been living on the surface as Lance Digger in a luxury LA apartment, stealing Oscars from celebrities.
Using his very unique dwarf abilities.
It's this amazing mix of archaic, almost disgusting biology and technical skill. He can climb walls with his porous skin, he uses dwarf gas, and he can pick high-security locks using his own hair after it's gone into rigor mortis. It's old-world knowledge bypassing next-gen security.
So Root finds him and coerces him back into service.
Threatens him with the worst place imaginable for a dwarf.
Right.
Howler's Peak, the goblin prison. Mulch caves immediately and agrees to show them his secret way into Cowboy Labs.
So the team takes this luxury Atlantean shuttle, which Mulch says handles like a 3-legged rhinoceros.
And they head for an uncharted chute deep beneath the facility.
And the way in, it relies on this very specific geological event.
Something only a dwarf would ever notice. Mulch explains the rock under the labs, breathes. It expands and contracts with the magma flares. For just 3 minutes, right before a flare, a 5-meter-wide fissure opens up as the rock cools and contracts.
And Holly has to pilot this clumsy shuttle through that tiny, scorching hot gap.
An incredible piece of flying, especially after what she's just been through.
Once they're inside, Mulch leads them to a titanium column, his real back door.
A century ago, he'd bored a hole in it and hooked up some sewage pipes. Now, those pipes are filled with 20 meters of this foul, toxic centennial clay and mud.
And the whole team.
The whole team. Commander Root, Captain Short, and the aristocratic boy genius Artemis Fowl II have to crawl through 20 meters of ancient, hazardous sewage to get inside.
That might be the best image in the whole story. The billionaire mastermind, covered in toxic sludge.
It proves that sometimes even the most high-tech plans require you to get your hands and everything else unbelievably dirty. So while the team is literally crawling through sewage, Foley, trapped in his ops booth, is playing his final hand. It's a brilliant, desperate move.
He realizes Cudgeon is letting him watch the chaos unfold because Cudgeon thinks he's powerless.
Exactly. So Foley uses Artemis's abandoned laptop. It has a great camera and, crucially, an uplink through American communication satellites. He secretly records Cudgeon's gloating confession over what Cudgeon thinks is a secure channel.
Cudgeon just lays out his entire plan.
Everything. How he'll use Opal Cowboy as a figurehead, his little princess, and then get rid of her in a tragic accident once he has full control. He was always planning to betray his own partner.
Yeah.
and Foley gets it all on tape.
Down in the labs, Root and Butler are moving through the corridors fighting off goblins, and they notice something odd. The DNA stun cannons are all offline.
Right, Group figures it out. Cudgeon was keeping them inactive on purpose, hiding his control over the system so his goblin army could do its job.
And then Artemis makes his entrance.
What an entrance! Covered head to toe in this toxic sludge, still getting zapped by residual plasma gel from the pipe, he crawls out directly into the inner sanctum control room.
Just as Cudgeon and the goblin generals are sitting back, watching Butler fight on the monitors for entertainment.
And Artemis, despite his state, he just walks over to the console and hits the conference button. He broadcasts Foley's recording of Cudgeon's confession to every screen in the room.
A tactical masterstroke.
The goblins see it all. Cudgeon's plan to betray Opal, to rule alone. Instant chaos. The generals turn on him, hissing, "Treachery! Cudgeon!" His whole plan just evaporates.
Cudgeon panics, but he has one last move.
He activates the DNA cannons, and this is where Opal's genius comes back to bite him. She had programmed them to specifically reject goblin DNA. All 200 Bois-Kel goblins in the facility are instantly, harmlessly knocked out.
The Civil War is over just like that.
Just like that. Butler, Root, and Holly burst into the room. Cudgeon, totally desperate, grabs the nearest person, Artemis, and holds him hostage with the soft-nosed red boy.
But Artemis has one final trick up his sleeve, thanks to Foley.
His mobile phone. Somehow it still works, and it rings loudly. Artemis just tosses the filthy phone over to Opal Cowboy.
And when she answers,
she hears Foley's recording, she hears Cudgeon planning her tragic accident, and that's his final mistake. Opal Cowboy's ego is so massive she can handle being beaten by the LEP. She cannot handle being betrayed by a pawn.
Her revenge is immediate.
And violent. She flies her hoverboy transport straight at Cudgeon, tangling him up in it. They both crash through the open plasma pipe hatch that Cudgeon himself had just activated.
And the plasma.
Instantly fries him with a million radioactive tendrils. He's gone. Opal is thrown from the chair, unconscious. Holly gives her a quick rabbit punch just to make sure she stays silent until they can secure her. The coup is over.
Which brings everything back to the Arctic.
The focus shifts entirely back to Fowl Sr. The Mafia, on Britva's orders, have set up a huge ambush around the Nicodeme submarine. Butler lays it out. 100 men, minimal support for them, and in order to kill the hostage if anything goes wrong.
A simple ransom drop is a death sentence.
It is, and this is where Artemis Fowl II makes his coldest, most pragmatic decision. He initiates his extreme plan. To break the Mafia's focus, to make them value the money more than the hostage, he gives Butler an unbelievable order.
Shoot his own father.
Shoot his own father. Butler, the ultimate professional, complies. He fires a hydrogen shell, basically a mini fire extinguisher, into Fowl Sr. The impact knocks him into the freezing radioactive water.
A perfect distraction.
It works perfectly. Artemis calls Vasican and spins the story about how he shot his father to prevent him from taking back the criminal empire Artemis II has built. He points them to a flare where the $5 million ransom is.
Money that Foley had treated to dissolve in 72 hours.
The Mafia, believing the hostage is dead and seeing $5 million in cash, they immediately abandon the body and go for the money.
And that creates the window.
The narrowest window for heroism. Holly, on her double-deck's wings, dives into that sub-zero radioactive water. She uses the last bit of her magic after everything she's been through to heal Fowl Sr.'s weak heart, saving him from hypothermia and the radiation.
One man, rescued from the Mafia, the Arctic, and from the brutal strategy of his own son. And so, the dual crisis is resolved. Cudgeon is gone, Opal Cowboy is in custody, the Bois-Kel are defeated, and Artemis Fowl I is rescued.
Though he needed Foley's mind-wiping technology to erase the trauma of the last 2 years, the sources say it was the only way to save him from permanent psychological damage.
The cost was immense, though. Down in Haven, you have officers like Trouble Kelp realizing the scale of the conspiracy Foley had uncovered, while Foley himself is still trapped in his booth, chatting about mole cameras.
And Artemis, he gets his father back and returns to his life at St. Bartleby's, but not before he shows this genuine, very uncharacteristic gratitude to Holly for what she did.
And Holly, she's reinstated to recon, her name cleared. She leaves Artemis with this small token of respect.
A great moment. She takes a gold coin, flicks it into the air, and shoots it with her pistol. Artemis catches the still warm coin, and he recognizes it as the first cool moment of his young life. The Alliance had actually forged some kind of respect between them.
And Foley, He's completely vindicated. He blacks out his windows, determined to find every last trace of Opal's programming, proving his paranoia about surveillance was justified all along.
So when you zoom out from all this, the central lesson is just so clear. This highly advanced, magical, technologically superior civilization was brought right to the edge of collapse by the crudest things from the human world.
AAA batteries, reflective foil,
Hmm.
and old copper wiring.
Right. The advanced system wasn't beaten by better technology. It was beaten because it was too sophisticated to even consider a threat from something so low-tech.
Which really brings the question back to us, to a society that relies on these incredibly complex, evolved systems every single day.
It raises a really powerful question for any major corporation, any government, anyone listening to this deep dive. If our own infrastructure is so layered and so complex, what fundamental weaknesses built right into the fabric of our systems, our power grids, our financial markets, our communications, are we just totally overlooking?
What weakness could a less sophisticated but more ruthless opponent exploit with something as simple and as easy to find as an alkaline battery?
That is the ultimate vulnerability of complexity, and it's something for you, the learner, to think about until our next deep dive.